which is why criminals spoke so freely around him. They didn't see him as safe. They didn't see him at all. So what do we have in this series so far? We have someone who taught us how to see, how to prove, how to infiltrate, and how to trace. But there is still a problem. All of those fail if you become the most noticeable standout thing in the environment. If you draw attention, if you signal authority, if people remember you. Because once you're remembered, you are compromised. And that's where the next real Sherlock enters the picture. Not a scientist, not a surgeon, not a criminal mastermind, but a man who understood something most people still get wrong today. The safest place in a crypt is the place nobody looks twice. His name was Jerome Caminada. Now, Jerome Caminada didn't hunt criminals by chasing them. He listened. Maybe dressed as a labourer, or as a drunk, as a nobody. He would sit at the back of churches and pubs and public spaces in disguise, listening to criminals talk freely. Not because they're stupid, but because they didn't think anyone important was there. And over his career, Caminada arrested more than 1,200 criminals. Not through force, but through invisibility. Jerome Caminada worked in Manchester during the late 19th century, a city exploding with industry and poverty and migration and crime. That wasn't a neat environment. It was crowded, noisy, chaotic, perfect cover. Caminada rose to become a detective superintendent, but he rarely looked like one. He understood these important points, that criminals don't fear police, they fear disruption. And the easiest way to disrupt intelligence gathering is to announce yourself. So Caminada didn't. He blended. He studied walking styles, postures, habits, routines. Not as abstract analysis, but as navigation tools. And Manchester was his map. Caminada was a contemporary of Conan Doyle. And while Doyle never explicitly names him as an influence, the parallels are arguably impossible to miss or ignore. Caminada's rivalry with the criminal Bob Horridge almost mirrors Holmes's relationship with Moriarty, not as equals, but as opposing intelligences. Holmes's ability to vanish into London crowds, to become a worker, a vagrant, a nobody. Caminada's method, not deduction from a distance. It's intelligence collection by presence without identity. Caminada's defining skill wasn't disguise in the theatrical sense. It was behavioural camouflage, which is important because bad disguise is obvious. Caminada didn't rely on costumes. He relied on congruence. He matched walking speed and posture and facial tension and attention patterns and social rhythm. He didn't look like a labourer. He moved like one. And that's the distinction most people miss. Visibility isn't about appearance. It's about a behavioural mismatch. If you're too alert, you're visible. If you scan too deliberately, you're visible. If you don't move with the environment, you're visible. Caminada really mastered the art of not triggering attention, which is why criminals spoke so freely around him. They didn't see him as safe. They didn't see him at all. Now, here's the psychological principle that Caminada exploited long before psychology even had language for it. Humans filter environments aggressively. We don't notice most of what we see. We notice novelty, or threat, or authority, or disruption. Caminada deliberately avoided all four. He didn't challenge behaviour, he didn't interrupt patterns, he allowed people to reveal themselves unchallenged. Now that's why his intelligence was clean. No interrogation pressure, no forced narratives, no defensive distortion, just behaviour unfolding naturally. Caminada's lessons are uncomfortable, especially for professionals. Lesson 1: authority attracts attention. The moment you signal importance, behaviour changes. People enter into impression management. They withhold. They perform. If you want authenticity, you must lower your signal. Lesson 2: observation improves when you stop intervening. Most people ruin information by engaging too early. Caminada gathered intelligence before the interaction, and that sequencing really matters. Lesson 3: the best operators are forgettable. If someone remembers you clearly after a brief encounter, ask why. Caminada understood that operational success often looks boring, and boring keeps you safe. Caminada was so effective at blending in that some officers reportedly didn't even recognize him in the field. He didn't just fool the criminals, he fooled his own colleagues as well, which tells you everything about how he completely committed to invisibility. So what do we have now? We have Bell that taught Sherlock Holmes how to see, Little John that taught him how to prove, Vidocq taught him how to infiltrate, Locard taught him how to trace, so Caminada taught him how to disappear. Not through cleverness, through humility, through behavioural alignment, through the discipline of not needing to be noticed. And that might be the hardest of skills for Sherlock after all of that. Next episode we return to structure, but not science. Because the next real Sherlock didn't work in labs or crowds. He built the system that made modern investigation possible.